Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the New York State Contact Tracing Initiative Training Series. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. If you require any further assistance, please press *0. I would now like to hand the conference over to your speaker today, Ms. Candice Dioguardi. Thank you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to introduce our presenter for today's training, Diana Spencer, who will be presenting on Microsoft Teams. Diana works in the New York State Department of Health in the Bureau of Cancer Prevention and Control, but she has also worked on the COVID hotline and is currently the infrastructure lead for the Mid-Hudson Regional Contact Tracing Team. She is a fearless clicker and is also an early adopter of Microsoft Teams. Without further ado, Diana, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candace. I am apparently now the presenter, so let's try and share a screen. Let's see. How does that look?
Diana, the view shows your slide notes, and the slides are small.
Okay. Is that
there we
better?
go. That's perfect. Perfect.
Oh, okay. My computer decided it wanted a different monitor than I did. Okay, well, then I'll just do it this way. So, hi, everybody. I'm Diana Spencer, and I'm with the New York State Department of Health, and as Candace said, I am currently deployed to support the Mid-Hudson Contact Tracing Initiative. There's so much to learn about Teams. I've been using it to one degree or another for most of this year, so somebody apparently decided I'm an expert. But today I hope to show you some of the features that I and others have found useful and give you an idea of what other possibilities exist. Now, for contact tracing purposes, each region may use Teams a little differently, so this will be more of a general overview than a how-to for your particular region's site. You'll see tons of screenshots, and those I built to turn the slide deck into a sort of job aid that will be sent out, I believe, later on after the presentation. So, let's get started. What is Teams? Microsoft Teams is a universal communication and collaboration platform that combines persistent workplace chat, video meetings, file storage, including collaboration of files and application integration. So, pardon me while I stifle a yawn. Let's try this again. What is Teams? Teams is a lot of things all built into one little bundle. You have email, you've got file storage and collaboration, you can do conference calls and webinars, you have bulletin boards, productivity tools, and it can even be just a water cooler where you chat. How do they do that? Well, for email, you have chats and channels. We have SharePoint and Office 365 for file collaboration. You can do meetings either scheduled or on demand. Your bulletin board is your announcements and channel posts. We have a world of applications, planner, form, shifts, Power Automate that you can use inside of Teams. And again, you have your little chat areas. And there's more. So this is the general Teams layout. I'm going to tell you up front, I do not know the official terminology for all of the parts of this thing, but I have managed to do okay so far, and I am confident you will as well. One thing to notice is it's also kind of a browser. So if you look up in here, and I'm hoping you can see my cursor, you've got like a little back and forward button. In this area, in the top right corner of the window, you've got a refresh button, and you can expand the screen to see more information in one place. So this is the general Teams layout. Here on this side are all of the teams I belong to. These are activity icons. You can see the little badge there. It's very social media. Somebody chatted me. Over here, this is just a tab that is in one of our channels. So then we talk about channels. If you expand any team, you'll see all of the channels it contains, okay? And even within a team, you may see some hidden channels. So if you click there, you'll see all the hidden channels. Anything, by the way, you see in bold means there's been activity that happened there since the last time you were there, which honestly may be never, but it's just an indicator for you to be aware of. From within your activity feed, you can also see different things. This is just who chatted with you, who reacted to messages. You can look at your chats and do things over there. And also notice the filter options here and the dots. My best word of advice, always click the dots, okay? I'm going to say it a bunch of times, always click the dots. So these dots mean more options exist, but what those options are will vary, sometimes even within the same screen, just because you selected something different on that screen. So you can, with these filters and more options, limit your results even further. I would like to just see things on a particular channel, or for my activity, I would just like to see things that are unread or where I was mentioned or missed calls, etc. So let's start with maybe the most fun and familiar feature in Teams, which is chats and channel posts. Not really super new. I think probably you've all texted. So for a best practice in contact tracing, your work and your communication shouldn't be happening in like private or group chats. That makes it very difficult to manage participants, collaborate on files across other work groups. And in addition, this is all kind of a learning experience. So if you have a question about why is ComCare doing this, and you post it in your little insular group, however many people that are in that group may see it and maybe have an answer, maybe not, but that's where the information stays. Whereas if you post it on a channel, chances are if you have the question, somebody else has run into it as well. And this way, everybody in the team gets the benefit of both the questions and the answers. So that's why, again, we say it's much better to work in channels than in group chats. The other thing is that in group chats, all file attachments only exist in the chat and in the OneDrive of the person who shared the item, which is kind of the opposite of collaboration. And I also think, like, what are we hiding? Why are we off in little private rooms somewhere? We all want to benefit from this. So there are times, though, when you just you need to have a quick conversation with somebody, you're working through something, you have a question. That's what chats are for. So to start a chat, again, you click the little pencil icon. It doesn't look much different than most other social media type things. You tell it who you want to chat to. You can start typing the name. You can also, if it's a group of people, invite multiple participants and assign a group name. That's kind of a pro tip because as you start to get other groups, the names will help you discern which one you're actually chatting in. So you type your message and you hit send, and off it goes. As I said, though, channel posts are one of the best ways to collaborate in teams because it lets everybody benefit from the questions and the answers and the resources, and everybody is hearing the same message, which for contact tracing is pretty critical. We don't have a lot of room for interpretation here, so having a consistent message is pretty important. So in a channel post, sometimes you want things to get a little bit more attention. Now, I don't know if you noticed down here at the bottom of the chat window is this little toolbar. If you click this little A with a pencil, it's a formatting bar, and it opens up your chat window, your post window, with a whole bunch of different possibilities. You can give it a little headline. You've got this thing called a pull quote. You've got different font styles. You can post your message in multiple channels, and depending upon your permissions, even in other teams that you belong to, if it's important enough that it should be disseminated that widely. You can attach things with a paperclip, just like you would an email. Fun fact, when Microsoft built Teams, they intended for the chats and channel posts to entirely replace email. It's a string of communication with attachments. It's just like email. Now, sometimes you need a little more attention, but, don't we all? So you can click here and turn your post into an announcement. That gives it either a solid color or, if you want, an image header. And again, you have more options. You can still post in multiple channels. You can limit replies. You can use different font headings. You can make things important, and in addition to being announcements. But one thing I remind everybody, if you make everything big, then nothing is big. So use the features prudently so you can ensure you're getting the attention when and where you want it. There's also some room for fun. Okay, down here we've got some little emoji that you can use and some little memes that you can customize. But do remember, it's a professional setting. We want you to treat it as such. Teams is like everything else you do for DOH. It's completely foilable. It's not private. So if you would not want your name next to it on the front page of the New York Times, probably you should not post it in Teams. So speaking of getting attention, another way you can get somebody's attention is tagging. This is a feature a lot of people use because with the appropriate notifications, what we call an @mention or tagging somebody sends up a lot more kind of like red things to draw their attention. So if you want to @mention somebody in a post or a chat, you type @ and their name. It'll bring you up a selection. This comes, by the way, from what they call the New York State Global Address List, which is everybody. So usually your results will be limited, but do pay attention to who you're chatting with or who you're tagging. And this is what it looks like in the chat post for the person. And you can see it's a little different color, which means it's highlighted as an @mention. To see your @mentions, if somebody has @mentioned you, you're going to click the activity icon, and then, yep, I know you're saying it, click the dots, right? You click the dots, and here you can ask it to show all of your @mentions. They'll stack up down here in your activity area, and this is what they look like in the actual chain of posts. Your name will be in bold red font. You'll have this little @mention at the side of the chat, and the @mention icon also will appear over in your activity feed in the channel, chat, or post where it occurred. One other thing a lot of people ask me to touch on is reply versus new. So if you want to participate in an existing conversation, so you want to add to what is being said in that, please be sure you use the reply button, because in Teams, this area, this top area, is going to be right above where you would start a new conversation. So it's definitely easy to miss, but you do want to try and keep the conversation together, like keep the thread together rather than start an entirely new conversation. So as I said, Teams has a world of options for collaboration. When you're in a chat or a channel, well, in a chat rather, let's say you need to show your supervisor your compare screen. I don't understand what this note means. Can you look at this and tell me? Yeah, you could take a screenshot and you could email it to them and wait for the response, but really, why bother when you can click this little icon here, and that will share your desktop or any individual application in pretty much just a few clicks. Sometimes you have to use your words, of course. You can make an in-app phone call with just that button. And I know people are saying, oh, but where's the call-in number? Where's my code? It doesn't need one. If you have a device that has Wi-Fi and internet access and a mic and a speaker, the Teams app uses like the magic of the interwebs to make what's called a voice over IP or VoIP call. So the app makes the phone call for you. The app, by the way, is all that's stored on your device. Like none of the content is stored on your device, and the app itself takes up about half the space that Facebook or Twitter does on your device. You can, of course, add a webcam if you need to. Sometimes that is important. And you can also see in this area either how many people are in the chat already, or you can add people, and you can also pop the chat out into kind of a separate window. That was a recent enhancement, and Microsoft went all dad joke, and when they put it on your team, you might have seen something that said, hey, chat's a poppin', and anyway. So screen sharing, as I said, I think is one of the most useful things you can do in Teams. When you click the screen share button, it opens up a little share tray, and it offers you a selection, and you'll note here, depending upon how too many windows you have open, it will let you scroll. But you can select your desktop or any window to share with another person. Now, Teams will connect to your colleague's desktop and present your screen to them. It says up here you're presenting. There is a give control. I've been hearing some chatter on one of the teams I belong to that the control thing maybe isn't working beautifully yet, but they're working on it. As soon as you connect, it will also say, hey, you're only sharing. Do you want to talk too? And you can unmute immediately right there. If you think you're going to be sharing more than one application, like, for example, I want to show you this thing in ComCare, but then I want to show you another thing I saw in Teams, I recommend selecting Desktop to Share. I found if you're sharing one application and then you want to share another one, it makes you stop sharing the first one and then select the new one, and that's just kind of a pain in the neck. So I recommend paying attention to what's on your desktop, but sharing the desktop. You'll also see that Teams will highlight for you in red the screen you're sharing so that it helps you keep track of what you're doing. So that's screen sharing. But even in a pandemic, with lots of the usual rules not applying, there are still always going to be meetings, right? So this section is going to cover calendar meetings versus these on-the-fly, I'm just going to call you quick or share my screen with you. One thing I'll say, I have found that depending upon where I schedule the meeting from, what platform I use to schedule it, the options I see are different. I don't know why. I guess it's a Microsoft thing, but I say that by way of encouraging you to pay attention to what options you have when you're scheduling. So as I said, you can, of course, just meet on demand from a one-on-one or a group chat. You click the little calendar icon, and it will offer you to either meet now or schedule the meeting for later, as well as add participants. In a channel post, you would click this. It's a video icon, and that is to have a meeting right there and then in the channel. If you see a video icon in the activity feed, it means there is a meeting in progress. But it may not be the meeting you think it is. So pay attention to what you click on, and we'll leave it at that. But of course, this is still not the best option for formal recurring meetings. These on-the-fly meetings keep all of the information, you know, the chat and the files you share with them, but in a week, they're going to be 6 miles up the scroll and lost, and they'll be very hard to find. Whereas if you schedule a formal meeting, that adds benefits like notes and recurrence, attendance, mute options, and more, which will exist on everybody's calendar until either they delete the meeting or the organizer cancels it. So let's look at a few ways quickly to just do some meetings. So for a channel meeting, as I said, you can go into the channel either on your calendar or here and click this. A channel meeting is going to be available to everybody who has access to that channel. Okay, now Microsoft believes that everybody wants to share everything with everybody. And again, we're not hiding anything from each other within our teams, but it's just obnoxious sometimes to have all these notices going all over the place. The robot, as they call it, will almost always want to send your meeting invite to everybody in your region's team. For Mid-Hudson, that's well over 500 people. So we have something called moderation, which stops the message from going to the big 500 group, but still lets it go to the people you've invited individually. Another thing I want to mention is you cannot hold channel meetings in private channels. I put the shruggy emoji next to that. I don't understand why Microsoft would set it that way, but evidently that's just the rule. So again, you add a title, you invite the people you want to invite, recognizing the robot will try and invite other people. You can set your date and time, your recurrence. If you want it to be a channel meeting, you can select that here. Just be sure it's a channel. There is a location button. It will search DOH rooms, but I'm pretty sure we can't be with people yet. And then here, you know, it's a meeting. Tell them about your meeting, do what you need to do when you're ready. You hit the send button, and the meeting goes off. In Outlook, from the desktop Outlook, you can also schedule a Teams meeting. Up here, you click that little icon. It's going to drop this link right in for you. And then you do all, again, the usual stuff. You add your invitees. You can use the scheduling assistant. You can put in file attachments. You can set recurrence. If you click this little, and I'm going to stop for a second. I know a lot of what's in these screenshots looks teeny tiny to you guys, but when you see the slide deck, it will help, I think, a lot. If you click this option, it'll take you to the web, where you also have a few more options about bypassing the lobby and announcing when people come in. You can limit presenters. So in Teams, all of us with our emails that end in ny.gov, if you are invited to a Teams meeting, by default, everybody has the same privileges. Everybody can mute and unmute. Everybody can share screens. The privileges are kind of universal. But if here you limit the presenters to only certain people, then only those people will be able to share their screens and have all the privileges. It is possible to invite somebody with other than an ny.gov account to a Teams meeting. They will not have all the privileges. They will not be able to see everything. However, for this purpose and for contact tracing, you should never invite anything but an ny.gov email account to a meeting about contact tracing. This is the only way we can ensure security of the information we transmit amongst ourselves. And while I know it's like possible from a technical standpoint to send it to somebody's Gmail, we're saying for the record, please do not do that. Again, if you use Outlook Web Access, or OA as they call it, you can set a Teams meeting there. In this area, by the location is where you set it for there. Now, once you're in a Teams meeting, I would say to join Teams meeting, I found the best way is to join from your Teams calendar. So you would go into Teams and click the calendar icon over here. It's going to show you the meeting. If it's already started, it'll be lit up darker and give you the option to join, but you can still click on it. If you join from your Outlook calendar or a reminder that pops up to say, hey, you're almost late for a meeting, I found out yesterday, I tested this with one of our CTs, Debbie, it makes you have to be admitted from the lobby. And again, that makes you a guest, which means you don't necessarily have all the privileges. So again, I always tell people, try and join Teams meetings from your Teams calendar for the best result. So once you're in the meeting, there are some tools here on the toolbar, might be familiar for you, that, you know, invisible hiding toolbar that just comes and goes for your viewing pleasure, I guess. But if you hover in the bottom of this area of the screen, it will in fact come back. And just yesterday, I found they're apparently changing this, and I guess it's going to live up here. I haven't seen the screenshots yet, but it's going to be up in this area of the meeting window. So your meeting tools, this is how long the meeting's been running. This shows you if your webcam is on or off. This one shows that it's on. This is your mic, if it's live or muted. This one shows it's muted. Here's screen share, which works just like screen share we just discussed. You can raise your hand to speak so somebody knows that you have something to say. This is one of the few places that a sidebar conversation isn't completely rude in the meeting because this chat stays with the meeting and everybody can participate in it. The people window shows you who's in the meeting. They'll stack up here. And again, from those dots, you'll be able to do different things with the participants. Mute them, pin them to the top of the window, take them out entirely, or make them a presenter. When there are multiple people in the meeting, you also have here the option to download an attendance list. So again, it gives you a built-in attendance list. And I know you're sitting out there saying, but wait, there's dots. You're not clicking the dots. How can you not be clicking the dots? Of course I'm going to click the dots. Always click the dots. In this case, what this is going to show you is your device settings so you can test your audio and video for your meeting. Depending upon your device, you may get some like green screen background effects. I have a wide variety of fake apartments. You have a keypad because again, it's a phone. You can record the meeting. The recording stays with the meeting and is available later on through an app called Stream. You can edit dead space at the beginning and end, and even make it a channel tab if you want to. You can end the meeting for everybody. It just hangs everybody up. Side note, if you're in a meeting, remember to hang up because otherwise it just goes on and on. And there is also live closed captioning. Okay, I've tested it. It works pretty well. It transcribes pretty much what we say, which in this case is be sure you know if your mic is muted. And I'm going to say that one more time. Be sure you know if your mic is muted. So those are meetings, okay? Here are a couple of other tips. Again, always click the dots. We do not have enough time for me to show you all the cool stuff behind all the dots, and I don't even know what's there. You have to click arrows and filters and dots like you're looking for the Easter egg that's hidden on our site map. You just don't know what you're going to find, and as I said, what's there will change from screen to screen. You can pop a chat out, mark it as unread. You can mute it. You can look at other things in your activity field. If you just click in the search bar in the top of the Teams window, look at all these options, and I didn't even scroll. So for keystrokes, you can set your status to be right back, or see your files, or see your mentions. So I always tell everybody, look everywhere. When you click in a field, don't just look at what you're expecting to see there or what you're trying to do there. Try and notice what else is going on. So in a chat window, you can pop the chat out separately. You can mark it as unread, which just kind of gives it a bookmark. You can pin chats in your activity screen to keep the ones you use most often at the top. Mute, hide, you can notify when that person becomes available if you're, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a stalker. You can mute a conversation without leaving it so the notifications don't drive you crazy, but you can still see what's going on because you're still in it. In a channel post, you can save messages for later. If it's your own message, you can edit or delete it, and you can mark them as unread to bookmark your place. And then in your activity feed, you can also just use a standard drag and drop to move teams you use most often to the top or rearrange pinned chat. One thing, again, to remember is chats are that persistent thing. You cannot delete a string of chat. Each individual participant would have to delete each and every one of their own chats and files. So that's just how that works. So you've been in Teams, you've been looking around, you know you saw a thing, but you're not entirely sure where you saw it, but it's got a great search function. So if you enter a search term into this search bar, it allows you to search for things. Now, it will search for people. Of course, CUI is probably not going to return much for people, but it also will return all results from your messages, which include your channel posts and chats, as well as any files that exist in the team that you belong to. If you click the filter, in both of these cases, they let you filter even further. So now you can look at a date range or a team or channel or an @mention. In here, you can again select certain file types or who modified the file. And again, you can filter even further and based on your permissions, even search other teams. So now you found the thing, you don't want to lose it again, right? So you save it. How do you do that? Well, I think you know by now, you click the dots, right? So you click the dots, and here you select Save This Message. When you need to access it again, you click your little avatar or photo, and you go to your saved messages, and off on the left where your activity feed is, you'll see all of your saved messages stacked up for you to scroll through and find what you need. There is, I'm pretty sure, a search bar in there. If this was just a temporary thing, oh, I only need this week, you just uncheck that little red flag and it goes away. So now you're way into Teams and you've got channels and libraries and chats and stuff all over the place, and all of a sudden you're realizing, oh my God, all I get all day is Teams notifications, and that's crazy for everything. So now you check your settings. To check your settings for your notifications, again, click your avatar, which opens this window, and you go to Settings. This is a really important screen, but I cannot tell you what to pick because you have to decide what you would like to get a notice for and what type of notice you would get for these various things. One other thing that's important to know is that these settings are device dependent. So I have some settings on my laptop for notifications on Teams, but my settings on my phone and my tablet are entirely different. I keep my phone by my bed at night in case of an emergency, but I don't need it to be pinging all night, so I can turn those off or set what they call quiet hours. Oh, actually I'm going to back up. If you select any of the options that include email, what will happen is after, I think you can designate the period of time, Teams will send you an email and it will say, hey, insert your name here, your colleagues are trying to reach you, which makes it seem like it's a very direct thing at you, and it might only just be like a mention of a channel you happen to look at once in a while. So do think about what notifications you want. Play around with them. You know, you can change them 5 times a day if you want to. It doesn't matter. Just use what you find to your best advantage. Another option in your settings is the privacy option. And within the privacy option, you can manage priority access. So if your status is set to do not disturb, maybe you're presenting or you're working or you're in a meeting, you can select certain people who, if they chat you, call you, or @mention you, it will still come through. Everybody else, if you're set to do not disturb, it's just going to tell them, I'll try that later because right now that person is busy. So be aware that's an option for you as well. As I said, for mobile devices, the notifications are separate. One big benefit on mobiles is that they offer this quiet hours. So you can set quiet hours or days and have the convenience of having Teams app on your phone when you need it without it pinging during dinner like a crazy telemarketer. So some of the other options and things Teams can do. There's a lot of productivity and collaboration options here. Again, we have channels. Channels should be designed to cover just one or just a few limited topics or types of work, like, you know, the ComCare channel or the CSS channel or X County. It provides a central location for your files, your commonly used links and resources through tabs, and this way everybody has access to all the information at the same time. For your team administrator, it's also easier because if your team administrator builds a page with information, they have to build it once, but they can post it to all 83 channels if that's how many you have, and anytime it gets updated everywhere. In the channels, many regions have specific staff assigned to monitor them, so we have our ComCare people monitoring the ComCare channel, I cruise the travel channel, that sort of thing, to answer questions, direct staff to the resources. It makes it easier to oversee on a macro level, but also lets you get a little bit more granular. So within each channel, you'll have a string of posts for the conversation to stay together, but your team might need to use other tools for your work, and those are stored in tabs. So this is just going to show you a few of the options that you may see as tabs in channels. Now, again, here are channels. Here I'm on the Contact Tracer Resources channel. And if you look up here, these are where all the tabs live. Now, depending upon the size of your monitor, I found, this might say 5 more, it might say 7 more, or if you've got a nice big monitor, they could all be showing right across the top of the page. But do look at all the tabs and recognize you may need to scroll here. So this one is essentially a web page that has embedded links, and if the user clicks on any of the icons here, it will take them directly to the web where that county's quarantine order is stored. It was something that Mid-Hudson found pretty useful because people were asking for it. You can also put a SharePoint list into a web page tab. This is our travel restriction state list, and it shows whether they're on or off, when they came on or off, however many times. I'm talking to you, Delaware. You can sort and filter, you can change views, you can do all that. And you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute though, where did all your channels go? If you look up here, this little expand tab lets you take your tab and use the entire space of the team's real estate so you can see more. There's also the refresh button. I tell people if you are looking at a page that has time-sensitive information and it looks wrong, hit the refresh button. It will probably get you where you need to be. You can also store multiple web pages in one tab. So this tab, for example, just contains information that New York State has published about COVID. Here's the page that talks about the CT initiative, which is all the wonderful work you guys do. I have suggested to people, if they say, oh, I don't believe you guys are real, you can direct them to these pages. And these, again, will link you directly to those pages. So tabs and channels can hold so much information, and if you use Teams as it was intended and effectively, you could potentially work an entire day and not ever have to venture outside of Teams, honestly. Teams even has, you can have an entire SharePoint library built in. You can pin frequently used or important files up to the top of the page for easy access. You can create new things, download things. Another recent addition is Microsoft Planner. This is a different team I belong to. She's using it. If you're into project management, this is a wonderful thing. There's also something called Shifts that was recently released for the government tenant. And I'm going to say the government tenant because when you work with an ny.gov email account, you're in what's called the GCC or government tenant. That is a very special safe place in Microsoft's cloud that has pretty much Pentagon-level security, and that's why we can transmit inside our team with our ny.gov accounts information like, you know, a contact's date of birth or their full name or that sort of a thing. Obviously, don't use any more identifying information than is absolutely necessary, but certainly be sure you know that it is a safe environment. So there's a lot about Teams, right? Here's my shameless self-promotion. Even if I were not a steering committee member, I would promote this community of practice. There should be a link to it in the slide deck you get. I think the link is live, or you can just search for it. It's called New York State Office 365 Community of Practice Team. We have over 3,700 members, and we come from a variety of New York State public and private agencies and organizations. We also have our very own customer success manager, and he gives us kind of direct access to what's new, what's coming up, what might be released when. I found there are things that have been released to the public sector for Teams that are not yet available in the GCC tenant, and that's because we have to do a little bit more testing to make sure everything fits in with the security systems that we have. So if you've seen something on the web but you can't find it here, probably that's why. If you join the community practice team, in the Teams channel, there is actually a GCC roadmap which shows what updates are going to hit when in the government tenant. So I'm exhausted, you guys. Now it's your turn. Do we have questions?
Yes, Diana, we do. Thank you so much. That was an excellent training. So I'm looking at the top of the questions. Any questions that we don't have a chance to get to today, we will take a look at those questions and we'll post answers in the future on the CT support website. But for now, the first question is, why does some of the chat info come up as a notification in email? I wind up with so many items in email in a day that it's difficult to see if I have an actual new email in my inbox. So is there a way that that can be customized to maybe turn off the email notifications, Diana?
Oh, 100%. You know what? Let me try and share my Teams application. All right. So yes, you are going to want to go to your settings and your notifications. And any place that you see anything that says email, probably, well, I'm not going to say turn it off, because you may not want to turn them all off. So, for example, typically I have personal mentions, send me an email, because sometimes I'm going to miss it. But you may not need that, because if you're in Teams all day long, you're going to see those personal mentions. So yeah, I would 100% say if you are getting too many emails, go to this notifications. Any place that says email, pick something different. Some of them you cannot turn off entirely. Like an @mention, you cannot turn it off entirely, but you can say, no, I only want to see a banner, or I only want to see it over here. You can see, I think, you are seeing my screen, right? Yeah. Over here, this little red badge, I left it there on purpose because that means somebody @mentioned me, and probably this little red one tells me this is where the @mention happened. So I think that's where you want to, go.
Great. Thank you, Diana. That was super helpful. Another request, can you review how to share your screen, delete chats, and blur your background when on a face-to-face call?
Sure. All right. So I'm going to say, to start with the last, blurring the background is going to be device dependent. Not all devices have that option. So if you don't have the option, then most likely it's the device. And tell me the other things, to delete a chat.
Yep,
right?
to delete a chat and to share a screen.
Okay, so I'm going to give this a shot. Candace, I'm going to pull up our chat with us, which is here. And so to share my screen, I just click here. Now, again, it lets me pick from all the applications I currently have open, or I can share my desktop, and it will show me what's currently on my desktop to share. So you can select one of those. As I said, if you think you need to be sharing more than one of these applications, I would just go with desktop, because otherwise you have to share and stop and share and stop and share and stop. If you want to delete a chat, you can only delete your own. So you'll notice if I click the dots on Candace, I can save it, mark it unread. It says translate. That's a lie, by the way, it doesn't. But here, because it's mine, I can either edit it or I can delete it.
Thanks, Diana. And while we're on that topic, can you save a chat as a draft before you send it?
Well, yes, in that if I chat here, and then I go here, and then maybe I go here and over into here, and then I come back to my chat, it's still here. So until you click this, it doesn't send. Here's a tip. I learned this because sometimes I type pretty fast. I'm typing along, and I hit enter because I think I'm going to hit a carriage return. Oh, it's like, oh, you want to post that in the middle of your sentence? Sure. So I have found, again, the formatting option opens this window up further so you can do whatever you need to do and not hit send. Here, you would have to physically come over here and click that send. So that's an option.
Okay, great. Next question. I don't think the reply, well, I guess this is more of a comment. I don't think the reply button works on my computer desktop version of Teams. It only works on my phone within the Microsoft Teams app. Is that something that you're familiar with, Diana?
Yes, that is correct, that the reply directly to a chat is currently only available on mobile, but my success manager says that is actually something that I think is supposed to be coming on for desktop very shortly. I was on the other day, and for like 5 seconds, not nearly long enough for me to read it, it said something about a combination of keystrokes that would let me reply to a message, but it was gone before I could see it, and I don't know what it is. And when I asked, they said, oh yeah, that's coming. Popular request.
Thank you very much. All right, next question. Can you use reply only in channels or in the chat section as well? I don't see a reply option in chat.
Well, so a chat, if you think about a chat as a conversation, Candace and I are having a conversation, or Candace and I and Debbie are having a conversation. If I say something, I'm talking to Candace and Debbie, and we all kind of know that because it's our own little chat, so we're only talking to ourselves. But in a channel, it's almost like instead of sitting at your own table talking to the 3 people at your table, you're in a room. And if you just yell out, hey, what about that? Nobody knows who you're talking to. So you would reply to a particular channel post, again, to keep the conversation together. Because this channel is a room with technically 500 people in it. And if I want to be sure I'm just talking to Christine and Matt, I have to reply to this conversation, because if I put something here, I'm kind of just yelling out into the room. Whereas in a chat, it's very specific who I'm talking to. And there's no, I mean, there's not reply because it's all a reply, if that makes sense. I hope that helps.
Definitely. Thank you, Diana. Next question. Can you show again how you reply to a person within a chain, please? I'm assuming that might mean the @ mention?
No, I think maybe this is about the reply versus new. So again,
okay.
This is a channel string, and if I want to reply to this person, right, I would click here to reply to this string. Like this is like one little contained string, this is a separate contained string, and each of those has a reply. So if I want to participate in this existing conversation, I reply. If I want to start something new, I type it down here.
Thank you very much. One participant commented that they don't have a screen sharing icon showing up. Is this something that you've encountered before with others, Diana?
Well, there might be a couple of reasons for that. One thing I always say is it may have to do with the size of your screen. Where I currently work now, I have a setup where I've got a laptop with, laptop-sized monitor, and I also attached a 21 or whatever inch monitor. When I drag my Teams window over to my laptop monitor, stuff gets collapsed, I guess is the word. Your team list kind of slides away and auto hides, and as I said, the tabs all kind of stack up upon one another to save that real estate and show you what I guess Teams/Microsoft thinks is the most important. However, the other option that I'm going to guess might be is that you are in Teams, maybe in a meeting, let's say, for example, but not under your ny.gov account. And that's where you end up as a guest, and you don't have the option to screen share. It may also be if you join the meeting from other than your Teams calendar. As I said, for whatever reason, that makes you have to be admitted from the lobby and kind of treats you like a guest. So it may also be you joined the meeting incorrectly, or again, if you're not signed in with your ny.gov. In that case, you need to turn all that off because we don't allow that, but I think that's probably what it is. If not, I hope this is okay. I'm going to say, send me a screenshot in Teams of what you're looking at, and I'll see if I can figure it out.
Thank you,
I love
Diana.
a challenge. Sure.
All right, so it's 12:56. I am going to address a couple of more questions. This one, I believe, is very important to reiterate with the group. Diana, I know you mentioned it earlier. The question is, can you invite people external of Department of Health to Teams?
No, you cannot invite anybody outside of ny.gov to Teams. You can invite them to a Teams meeting. So, for example, somebody asked if they could invite a local health department person to a Teams meeting, and you can. They will not have all the privileges. They can't present, so of course screen sharing would be turned off for them. They would not be able to, they could see any documents the presenter presented, but they would not be able to download them, which everybody else in the meeting with an ny.gov account could. So if this is an outside person you need to invite to a meeting, it's technically possible, but I'm going to say again, remember what we do, it's not really HIPAA technically, okay? But it's still personal information, and because it should stay that way and stay secure, we try very hard to not use anything but an ny.gov account for anything in Teams to do with contact tracing.
Thank you very much, Diana. Okay, we have time for one more question. There was a request to show how to share your screen in Teams. if you don't mind going over that again.
Okay. I'm gonna go all the way through on this chat with you, Candace. I don't think it'll matter, but so I will say I'd like to share the screen. So now I'm going to do this from a chat because again I don't know for sure where they're looking to share from, but from a chat, you click here. Again, you select what you want to share with them. So I could say, oh, I'd like to share my PowerPoint. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see that because it's like a box within a box within a box. I'm sharing Microsoft Teams. Oh, here. Oh, it's just on time delay. So here, maybe you can see, it's probably kind of hard, this window with the red line around it tells me I am sharing this screen through Teams. And down here, it tells me I'm sharing only. Do I want to talk? And if I clicked unmute, it would call her, and I'd be able to talk to her that way. If I don't have to. I can just say, you know, oh yeah, look at all this, and can you tell me what you think of that?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Diana. So as I mentioned, I know that there were questions that we ran out of time and were not able to get to. We will review those. Answers to those questions will be posted in the future to the CT support website, as well as the recording from this training. So thank you, Diana, again so much. This was very, very helpful, and I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.